All right. So today we are with Savannah, and Savannah is 30 years old. She is married and has two children under two. She's currently a part-time accounting manager, and they do have a few financial goals. So the first would be to build their savings, specifically their emergency fund. I would count the saving up for bills as well as part of your emergency fund, but about 3 months worth of bill savings, as well as to purchase a larger house. You want to travel, and then you want to jumpstart your retirement accounts. So we'll talk about all of those and see what's possible. There are a few things that they struggle with financially as well. So the first one would be that her husband's income fluctuates. So he has a full-time job, but also does some side jobs. So that makes it difficult to budget. We could talk about some solutions around that. And then, due to some medical and situational issues, they have burned through their savings. And also, as far as the side business goes, we need to get a little bit organized with that and make sure we're keeping up with taxes. So we can talk about that too. So thank you for being here, Savannah.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Let's first talk about your journey with finances so far. So have you had, as of right now, you have just your mortgage debt and a family loan, which is great. You don't have like credit card debt or personal loans, car loans. So in the past, how have you handled finances, and did you have a lot of debt before?
So I personally never had like credit card debt or car debt. I was always a very firm believer of like if you spend it on your credit card, it better be ready to come out of your bank account,
Mhm.
or at least by the end of the month. Like we always pay off our entire statement before it bleeds into the next one.
Mhm.
I did have some college debt, but I paid that off 10 months after I graduated, just through savings, and I had some scholarships and stuff that kind of helped keep that down. But I paid off just under 20,000 within 10 months,
Awesome.
which so my background is in accounting. That's what I studied in college, and I started my career doing taxes. So I was a tax
Mhm.
accountant. Um, it was horrible. I ended up quitting
Yeah.
that field after a couple years, just because the like 80 hours in a cubicle was not good for my mental health. But that salary is what helped me really kind of kickstart that debt payoff. So then fast forward, I married my husband who brought in all kinds of debt. So he had about $8,000 in car debt. He had about $8,000 in credit card debt. And then he had some student loans that we recently finished paying off. And so I mean, my husband will tell you he is not good with budgets. He does not like budgets, but he was very happy to just let me handle all of it. So that at
Mhm.
least was good because I know, like, I have some friends who, their husbands are like, well, I want to have a say in it. But he was just like, I'm not good at it. You can just handle it.
Mhm.
So, as soon as we got married, like, I really worked to pay down a lot of his debt, which did use up a lot of the savings that I had brought into our marriage. But we got his car paid off. We got all the credit card debt paid down. So that was all done. We just worked really hard to maintain that, like, debt-free status until
Mhm.
we bought our house,
Mhm.
which is debt. But so any like vehicles that we purchased, we saved up for before we bought them, and we stayed debt-free till we bought our house in December of 2022.
Okay. That's really good. That's impressive that you've paid off that much debt. That's incredible. Was your income similar to what it is now while you were paying off the debt?
It has changed a lot.
Okay.
So Tucker and I both made pretty good money when we first started dating. Um,
Hmm.
and then I had actually kind of left the accounting world and started my own. It's kind of a long story, but I had started my own wedding planning business.
Okay.
Um, and so his income kind of supported that while we got that up and going. And then COVID hit, and that we ended up closing that business. So my income fluctuated a lot during we were in business for about 6 years. Um, it fluctuated a lot during that. And then Tucker left his kind of corporate job and he kind of started pursuing his own thing. So then his income fluctuated a lot as he just
Mhm.
kind of worked towards what he wanted. The job he has now, he's been there for just over a year. Before he started that job, he made less. Just doing other like he had basically started in a new industry, and so he started kind of at the bottom and has worked up. So
Got it. Okay. That's awesome though. That's really good. And what does he do on the side? What type of work is he doing?
he a lot of handyman stuff. So his
Okay.
like day job, if you will, his career job is he's an electrician's apprentice. So he's working through a program. He goes to school for it. Um, and then he does it works, it pairs well with that. He does just all kinds of handyman project type stuff. He's renovated bathrooms. He's done, hung people's garage doors. He'll put lights in. I mean, just like people will be like, "Oh, can you do this?" And he's like, "Oh, probably." Like, and
That's
he just
awesome.
figures it out. So,
Yeah. Okay. Got it. That's really good. That's a good, it's always necessary. So good business to be
yeah.
in. Okay. So with your budgeting, I know that you use goodbudget.com, which actually I've never heard of. So would you say, I mean, the website's pretty clear to me, but does it allow you to actually set up a budget? Like you can set what you want to spend and then track against that? Is that how you've been doing it?
So you can
Okay.
set up like weekly or monthly budgets. It's essentially a digital envelope system is kind
Okay.
of the concept of the site. And so you can go in and be like, oh, I want to spend $600 on groceries and $200 on utilities. And
Hmm.
I want to save $1,000 for Christmas. And, Christmas is annual, but the others are monthly. Like you can kind of set those. And then it allows you to fill your envelopes and you can kind of do it a few different ways. You can go in and manually be like, oh, I want to put $20 here, $100 there. Or you can just click like fill my envelopes set to my budget. So
Hmm.
it'll say, okay, here's your $600 for the month in groceries. Or you can fill as you make money. So, like, say I get paid on Friday and I go, okay, here's my 700 bucks. Like, I want 500 to go here and 200 to go here. And you can kind of choose it. So, there's like different ways you can utilize it.
Got it. Okay. So would you say that it's helped you with budgeting and keeping your finances together?
Yeah, honestly, I primarily chose Good Budget to help me budget with my husband,
Hmm.
because I mean, he had no idea what he was spending. Honestly, like before we got married, when we first had like the finance talk, he
Hmm.
was like, yeah, I think I have some credit card debt. And I was like, well, like how much? And he's like, oh, I have no idea. Like he had
Oh.
no clue. He just like zero. He
Hmm.
just didn't care. And so we got Good Budget and we like share the same login so he can go in and be like, do I have money to buy lunch today or do I need to pack my own lunch? And he can just go in and be like, what's in the envelope? Um,
Hmm.
and so it's not the right term, but I've trained him
Uh-huh.
to record his expenses as he spends it. And it just helps him be a lot more mindful of what he's spending. Now we've had some like ups and downs with our budget just because of different circumstances. But I do feel like, if nothing else, the Good Budget system has just helped both of us be more mindful of like,
Hmm.
oh, do I really want to spend 20 bucks on food today? Because I'm going to have to put that in and my husband's going to see that I spent it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's really good for mindfulness.
Okay. That's awesome. No, I will talk about some of the spending. Nothing too crazy on there, but I noticed a couple of things that like popped up a few times. So we'll talk through that. So going back to your debt, you just have the mortgage, which is a little bit over $200,000 and 6%. And I know that you mentioned when you applied that you would like to move into a larger home. So how soon would that be? Like, what does that look like on schedule wise?
Well, so we're kind of at this point where we thought we would have moved already, but
Hmm.
we had bought this house. This was our first house that we bought.
Okay.
And we moved in, and then 3 weeks later found out I was pregnant with our second.
Hmm.
And that just kind of threw a wrench in a lot of things. Both my boys were premature babies, and so like the medical bills and just time off of work, all of that impacted our finances a lot.
Hmm.
Plus, just the things that they needed, special appointments and things because of their prematurity. So, the original plan when we had moved in was we were going to come in, finish the basement, and then resell it. Because once we finished the basement, it would essentially double our square footage and we could sell it for a lot more. And so
Hmm.
this was supposed to just be like a stepping stone to get to the house we really wanted. But then just the finances and the timing, my husband is doing the work himself in the basement. And so that things just got delayed. So now we're kind of like, okay, we've kind of lost track of like our goal because we thought we'd only be in this house a year or two.
Hmm.
And it'll be 2 years this December, and we're not on track to be out by December. So now I think we just kind of need to reset, refocus, like actually saving up for the down payment and things that we need, finishing projects in the house.
Hmm.
Um, I have no desire to like move a bunch of times. So what we really want is just to kind of find an ideal house that fits our family well. Right now we're in a kind of small 2 bedroom house. And honestly, our 1 year old is sleeping in our master closet.
Okay.
So just a little more space. But we would like to just kind of get back on track with finding the right house that we could stay in for several years or until those needs drastically change.
Okay. Are you in any hurry to pay down this mortgage currently, or are you okay with just doing the minimum for now?
I'm okay with the minimum. It would be nice to get rid of the PMI
Hmm.
interest that we have to pay, which
Hmm.
they said you have to pay 10% of your principal. Do you know?
I think it's 20.
20% of your
Hmm.
principal, which I don't think we're very close to doing that anytime soon. So I'm thinking we would probably just focus on getting into the house we want to have.
Hmm.
Then we can really focus on paying that down because once we're in the house we want to stay in, then I would be interested in paying down that mortgage and becoming own like being debt free again.
Okay.
But that would be a long
Yeah,
process.
yeah, far in the future. Okay. And then your other debt is the family loan, which is 0%, but you're paying about 200 per month and a total of 7,900 to go. Are you in any rush to pay that off, or like is it causing any like
No, I mean,
family
I would
problems?
like to pay it off just because I don't like owing people money.
Hmm.
But the loan is from my husband's parents, my in-laws,
Hmm.
and they're very like, oh, whatever, pay it when you can.
That's great.
But just for my own desire, I don't want to leave it there forever.
Okay. Do you have a goal in mind of when you would like to pay that off by, or have you thought of
Within
that?
a couple years, ideally.
Okay, within a couple of years. Well, I'm glad that's your only debt. That's really good. So, yeah, congrats on paying off everything else. And even with like your children's medical bills, I could imagine that's expensive. And for you not to like be carrying that still, that's
Yeah,
amazing. So I think you're doing really well already. Okay, so let's talk about your assets. So you have a checking account, about $1,200, and then just about 100 in savings. Is your savings a high yield savings account or just regular savings?
just regular.
Okay. Are you familiar with the high yield savings account?
I'm familiar. We don't have one
Okay.
obviously right now, but I'm familiar with them.
Would you be open to opening one of those?
Yeah,
Okay. So that's my first recommendation is open a high yield savings account. I can send you some recommendations, but with these, you're going to be gaining interest on the money that you have saved in there. They're FDIC insured up to 250K. They should have no fees. There's a few of them that I'm going to suggest to you that have no fees. You can also create little buckets in them or the sinking funds like I was talking about, and you can save for specific things and actually give them a name so you can see your goals that way. I know you see your goals on the Good Budget website, but with this, you can actually also see it on the saving side. So I do think that because you have a house and because you have young children, we should bulk up your emergency fund
Mhm.
first. Like that's kind of top priority in my opinion. How do you feel about that?
No, I agree.
Okay.
Most of my life, I've always kept like several thousand kind
Mm-hmm.
of in that like emergency bucket. And then, like I've mentioned, just different things happening. I mean, we just burned through it. So I would love to get that back up to a comfortable level.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What number would you feel comfortable with? Like, let's think of the next 6 months or so, or even the next year. Is there a emergency fund goal number in mind?
I mean, ideally, like I would love to have 5,000 in savings just because
Okay.
I mean, there's four of us in our family, so if anything medically were to happen there, that could be a big chunk. If a car went out, if
Mm-hmm.
one of us lost our jobs, like and even 5,000, I feel could go really fast, but I feel like that would be a good, like, starting.
Starting. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we'll see what's possible with that. How about investing? Does your job or does your husband's job have any sort of retirement plan?
They both do.
Okay.
Honestly, so the retirement plan only recently became available to my husband, so we're not signed up there yet.
Okay.
But he actually just the other day was like, "Oh, we need to get that in place." So that is on
Mm-hmm.
our to-do list. And then I have so I work for a church. I do like the finances for a church, and so I have a 403(b).
And do you get any sort of match if you were to contribute?
Yeah, since I'm only part-time, I get 2%.
Okay, that's not bad.
Mhm.
Do you current
Currently I contribute 3% of my paycheck and they match up to 2.
Okay. And will your husband's retirement get a match as well? Do you know?
They do. I don't know what it is.
Okay. And is that a 401(k) that he'll
Yeah.
be getting? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say with that, if there is the match for your husband's job to just contribute up to the match, I think you're fine at the 3% for yours. And that's good. That's good that they still match even with part-time. That's great.
Mhm.
Got it. So we can talk about investing some as we go through your spending, but I think just top priority is first the savings, and then we can see how quickly you could pay down that family loan just for you.
Mhm.
For your income, so Tucker brings home about 3,400 from his full-time job. You bring home about 1,400, and then his side jobs are about 1,600. So when you're budgeting, I know you said that that's kind of difficult. That's the difficult part. So are you just going with the lowest, or how do you typically handle the fluctuating income?
It's kind of our average. Certain months of the year definitely like tend to be higher or lower. Like I can tell you in January, he probably wouldn't make 1,600, but in like July or August, he usually makes like 3,400.
Okay.
Just because he gets a lot more like outdoor jobs. Like last summer, he built a deck for somebody, like
Well,
a three-tier deck. And so that was a huge job. And they kind of work around the clock till they get it done. But you can't do that when it's like 0 degrees and snowing.
yeah.
So he's been doing side jobs long enough that I feel like we can kind of gauge what he could make.
Hmm.
And so we just kind of try to be mindful of that. Like he tries to schedule enough jobs to at least hit that 1,600 or whatever we've budgeted for that month. And then if he has the time and the jobs to take on more, he will.
Okay. Yeah. My suggestion is when budgeting is just to go with the either just your income that you know 100% you're going to get because that's going to be like super conservative. But beyond that, if you feel like at minimum it's $1,000 per month or 1,600, whatever it is, you can budget with that. Anything on top of that, just have a goal for it. So it's that savings or putting it to debt, then you can, any extra income just would go to that, which is a good technique to make a lot of progress. So we'll see what that looks like in your budget. I think that's really it for your debt and your assets before we go to making your budget. Do you have anything else to add with your finances that would be important?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. And actually, I do have a question with working and retirement, how thinking of long-term goals, are you okay? Are both you and your husband okay with kind of working toward traditional retirement age, or do you want to retire early? How does like
I think
long-term future
traditional.
traditional? Okay,
Yeah.
so you're both okay with working.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. And then how about with your children? Any goals for saving for them for the
Yes.
future? Okay.
I we haven't figured out like a number that we want to reach for, but I do know that we both want to have, we call it like a future fund of just whether that's a chunk of money that they want to use for college, for down payment on a house, for I mean
Hmm.
whatever their goals are, we do want to have something that we can offer them.
Okay.
But that's not something we've really figured out like, ooh, we want to have 40,000 or whatever.
Hmm.
So we need to figure that out.
Okay. Yeah, at least something to start with. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a couple of options. There's like the 529, but that can only be used for certain things.
It's
The
like the
high yield save
educational one, right?
education, yeah, but they can also use it for a number of things now, like
Oh, okay.
different I think they can start investing that money too, like if they don't go to school. I think it recently changed, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But I know it's a pretty good investment vehicle. So good option there, or the high yield savings account or a CD. So a certificate of deposit account, which is
Mhm.
also going to have an interest rate where you just make passive income basically on it. So we can look into that. But I guess, top priority is just the emergency fund
Mhm.
to start with. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through your budget for August specifically. So I put in the numbers that you provided me. And thinking of August specifically, I'm assuming Tucker's paycheck as well as your paycheck are correct. But for August specifically, do you think his side jobs will be a minimum of 1600, like at least 1600?
Yeah, I think he'd get at least 16.
Okay. So we'll keep it at that. And then if it's more, that's great. And then you can put that in here and put it toward whichever goal you want to focus on. So it will probably be the savings.
Okay.
So I put in all the numbers that you provided me, but I added in just the tax savings. So
Mhm.
I know you mentioned that he has not been saving for that, but if he's made a big chunk from side hustle work, then that might be something you want to get caught up on too over the next few months, just to be prepared for tax season.
Yeah.
So what I did with this was just 20% of 1600, and that is ideally what you would put aside for tax savings.
Okay.
So has he made any tax payments
No.
on those earnings? Okay. And do
No.
you have an idea about how much he's made so far this year?
I could probably give you a rough estimate. I mean, he's probably made 12 to 15,000.
Okay. So typically when you're making money on the side, you do want to pay quarterly estimated payments.
Hmm.
So that is the quarters are kind of weird. It's like every April, June, September, and then January.
Okay.
And if you don't do that while making extra money on the side, you typically have to pay a fee come tax time. I mean, you probably know because you were doing taxes. I'm not a tax expert by any means, but I do know that. So if possible, if he can start making those estimated payments come September, that would be helpful. Even if it's just for that quarter, then that would help you out a little bit.
Okay.
So we'll try to work toward that. The other thing is he keeping track of business expenses pretty accurately?
Yeah, I mean, so there's sort of two kinds of expenses. So anything that is not directly related to a client,
Hmm.
those expenses are fairly minimal. Most of the stuff that he buys, he can charge to the client, even if it's like, oh, he needs a very specific tool for this
Hmm.
project that they want. He usually just says he includes it in their bid and says, this is what it would cost me to do the job, and then they agree or not. So, I mean, I don't know if you would count that as business expenses because it is money he's paying, but then it gets reimbursed by the client. His own expenses are pretty minimal, but he
Okay.
does track all of them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that there's a way to get around that, like actually count those purchases as business expenses. You probably know better than I do if you were preparing taxes, but yeah, if it's minimal, then that's fine. I would still keep track though of everything just as, so he can write some stuff off and save
Mhm.
money there. Okay, so for now, I just put the 20% of that. You may even want to go higher, like 25% just to be safe. But even beyond this, I think we should try to set up. So with the high yield savings account that you would open, if you want to open that, I would create a sinking fund or a bucket in there called tax savings and start adding to that every single month, but also trying to add extra to it to be prepared for 2025.
Okay.
Okay, so 320 there. I did add in the minimum payment for the mortgage. So you're just paying the minimum for the mortgage, right? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Utilities, you put 392. For August specifically, would you say that's still accurate? Okay.
Yeah.
And I saw that on your good budget and that looked correct. Insurance, 200. What type of is this car insurance?
Our yeah, so that's our car and well, I guess our house insurance. Yeah, sorry. So
Bundled
that is
together.
just car insurance. And I wasn't sure how to put that in because so we pay our insurance twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of the prorated like monthly amount, but we make two payments a year.
Okay. So when is that next payment coming up?
October.
October. Okay. So I'm gonna hop to this year at a glance and put car insurance. And how much do you know how much that will be about for October?
It's about 800.
Okay. That's not bad. So yeah, I did for one of your sinking fund ideas. So again, in your high yield savings account, if you have a bucket, I think that would be smart to start that. So 200 per month going to that. Is that something you do already? Like, are you preparing for that each 6 months, or are you just cash flowing it when the month comes?
So our normal rhythm has been to put money towards that envelope, like towards that bucket every month.
Okay.
Because our funds are, I mean, they're really kind of the lowest they've been
Hmm.
ever. So things aren't looking as healthy and tidy as normal.
Hmm.
But usually I do try to uh, kind of put that $200 a month towards it so it's already there and ready to go when we
Okay.
make payment.
Got it. Okay. So I'm gonna pop that actually, I'm gonna just put it down here to come back to of 200, and that will actually be for a sinking fund. So I'll take it out from up here. Medical bills, I think I saw the on your good budget, I saw that you have this and it's like a lot of just health and wellness spending. Is that right?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
I had titled it medical bills because originally that was mostly paying for mine and
Okay.
my boys' hospital stays. Uh,
Hmm.
but we recently got those paid off and partially forgiven. And so now it is mostly like chiropractor, stuff like that.
Okay. So for August specifically, will this be about 600?
It's probably going to be a little less, maybe more like 400.
Okay, good. 400 there. Phone, internet, music. Will this be 130 for August?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's like obviously internet, Spotify, phone
Mm-hmm.
bill. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gas for your cars. Now, actually, before we talk about this number, it looks like, do y'all have three cars?
We do.
Okay. Are you using all three of them?
Yeah, so there's my car, which is kind of the main family car, has car seats and everything in it. And then my husband has a car that he primarily drives. He often drives pretty far for work. Sometimes depends on where they place him at a job site, but sometimes like 45 minutes away. And so then the truck that we have is super, super old. It was gifted to us by my dad. It was his truck, like it was in our driveway all growing up. Like it's a super
Mm-hmm.
old truck. And so we have that because with the jobs that Tucker does, sometimes he has to haul like drywall,
Hmm.
refrigerators, things like that. But it really is like the miles per gallon on that truck is so bad
Okay.
that we just he tries not to drive it unless he specifically needs to haul stuff. So that's kind of
Got
why
it.
we hung on to the three cars because they kind of serve different purposes.
Okay, that makes sense. And I know you mentioned wanting to save up to purchase new vehicles. How
Hmm.
soon would that be
Honestly,
happening?
it's one of those things that I know that truck is going to break down eventually. And because of Tucker's jobs, we really need to be able to get a new truck.
Hmm.
So we're not really in a rush to like do it before we need to, but I just want to be ready when that time comes.
Yeah.
And ideally, if we can swing it depending on like when that truck actually goes, I would love to be able to get a truck that has a back seat so that
Hmm.
he can put car seats in it. And because right now the boys can't ride in the truck that he has,
Hmm.
it's not safe. And so if we can get a truck that he can also transport the babies in, we could get rid of both the old truck and his car and just go down to
Okay.
two vehicles.
Got
That would
it.
be my ideal if
Okay.
we could make that happen.
So not a huge rush, but something to start saving for
Yeah.
sometime
I know
soon.
it's
Okay.
coming. I just don't know when.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So for gas is 215 for August. Okay.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
probably about right.
Food, I'm not sure if because so when I looked at your good budget, I noticed that you were putting like food out and like random little trips to QT under discretionary. So do you keep track of groceries versus food out?
This has been like the hardest part of our budget. So,
Okay.
all those little quick trip QT transactions, those are my husband.
I saw that.
And uh-huh. And so I've tried like approaching this so many different ways. Like first it was like, okay, if it's food, it can come out of food. And then it was like, well, you can't just spend like our entire grocery budget on like slushies at Quick Trip. Like, but then, so then we have like our discretionary budgets where it's kind of like, okay, Tucker, here's your discretionary money. You can do whatever you want with it. You don't have to talk to me about it. You just can spend it on whatever you want. So then he was using that. Well, then he was just like overspending on his discretionary budget because he wouldn't record some of his quick trip transactions and then he'd add them all in at once. And so I don't know. Honestly, that's kind of a hot mess. Um, I would be really interested to know what you recommend as far as like groceries versus food out. Yeah, I would love some help
Yeah,
there, I
okay.
think.
I do prefer for groceries and food out to be separated because it's different expenses. With trips to like QT and stuff, I would count that as food out. I understand if it works for y'all to have like the discretionary or the personal spending and it's easier for him to just keep track of it under that and he gets a budget under that, I think that's fine. But would he be open, aside from like if he goes to QT and gets a slushie, is he also buying like snacks or like sodas? Is there anything that he could buy from the grocery store instead of
Yeah,
getting it from QT?
yes.
Would he be open to doing that?
Yeah, I think it's just doing it like planning ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, because I think the issue, like, I have been trying to get our grocery, like our whole food budget down for a
Hmm.
long time, and it just never stayed. We just can't get there. And so it's kind of like he won't ask for certain snacks because he's like, oh, we're trying to stay under budget. But then he's like, oops, I ran out of food at work. Like, let me just pick this up because, well, I need to eat. And it's like, well, but it would have been cheaper if we just bought it with the groceries.
Hmm.
So it's like, it's almost like he's like, I'm going to save money. And then later he's like, oh no, I actually just need some food.
Okay.
So, I mean, he's open to it. I think we just really need to figure out clear boundaries on that
Hmm.
spending.
Okay.
And then we both need to stick to them.
Okay. So I would say discuss food and drink from grocery store. So if he has a list of things that he's frequently buying from QT, and the other thing too is I know that for a lot of people, I think the trip to QT is kind of like not an experience, but just like, oh, I get to go to it's like makes your day a little bit better.
A little
So,
self-care
yeah.
moment. Yeah.
So I don't want to take away from that if that's like maybe there's a certain amount that he spends each month at QT, but if there's things that he's noticing he's buying each time and y'all could just buy it at the grocery store, maybe get clear on that and then buy that from the grocery store and he can just pull from that
Okay.
and then still get his slushies or whatever he needs to. Okay, so I'm gonna put first, let me put this down. First groceries, and then we'll try food out. Now, thinking of him, would you be okay with putting a food out category, or do you want to keep it as like Tucker discretionary, Savannah discretionary?
I would be fine with food out.
Okay.
Because we're trying to eat out less anyway.
Hmm.
And so I think it would be helpful for not just a budgetary reason, but also health reasons to be able to see how much we're spending on healthy food we're making at home versus
Hmm.
eating out.
Okay. Okay. So for groceries, what do you know about what you spend on groceries? Is it 600?
It varies a lot, to be honest, because, well, a lot of stuff gets lumped into that, and maybe we need to like sift through it a little better because like all of our kids' diapers go through
Hmm.
there. Um, if we have like a dinner party, like all of that, it's food, so it goes there. We order it with our groceries, but it's really outside of our normal family menu.
Hmm.
So would you recommend still putting all of that together? Or, I mean,
I
I don't
think
know.
that's gonna be easier for y'all, it sounds like. Just because there's gonna be with the diapers, with do you probably buy like cleaning supplies and toilet
Yeah,
paper with groceries? Yeah. I think that's gonna be easier, at least for now, to just keep it with groceries. So I think you probably will need to be higher. So let me look at June. Actually, your June spending under food. Costco 92, Costco 5. Walmart 20. I see some food out. Lots of QT coming up here too. Um, Wendy's, Taco Bell. Is it mostly Costco that you're grocery shopping at?
Costco and Walmart.
Okay.
So it looks like in June, according to Good Budget, we spent $1,400 in our food category,
Okay.
which
So
is
let me
insane.
see. Plus 198. I'm just adding up the Costco's and the Walmarts, and let's look at what's actually grocery. So I added up just the Costco's and Walmarts from June, and it's about $908. So let's put for groceries. I'm assuming that's probably pretty typical. Did you like travel or anything in June or?
So yeah, that's
Okay.
probably pretty typical.
Okay. So you want to put groceries at 900?
Yeah.
And then it sounds like food out. If you said it was about 1400, that would mean it's about 500 to food out, which sounds pretty high.
Yeah. It
For
does.
August, would you want to work on lowering that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a number in mind that your husband would also be on board with?
I mean, let's just half it. Let's go 250,
Okay.
which I still think should be lower, but I think that would be a good
Starting.
starting point.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So groceries, food out, that's all good. So next up is tithes. Now, I did want to talk about this. I'm assuming you're doing like a percentage of your income. It's a little high. Would you be open to lowering this?
No, so our tithe is our 10% of our income that we give back to the church.
Hmm.
And that's a big part of our faith. And so
Okay.
honestly, eventually I would love to increase that, but
Hmm.
10% is going to be our minimum.
Okay. So do you want to keep this at 640?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see what this looks like, but what happens if has there ever been a time where you have not had enough money to cover everything, but you were still tithing?
Yeah.
Okay. When that happens, would you be open to reducing that, or is it just minimum? the 10%?
Yeah, that's just going to be our minimum.
Okay.
I in the times in my life where I've tried to skimp on the tithes, I feel like everything else kind of falls apart.
Okay.
And that's just a big part of our faith.
Okay.
I really feel like when we give our first 10% to God, he really just kind of provides everything else. And I've just seen that to be true for us. And so if we need to skimp in other places or make more to cover things, uh,
Hmm.
we will figure that out. But in my experience, as long as we are faithfully giving, we've
Hmm.
never been unable to make our mortgage payment. We've not been unable to keep our heads above water, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll keep it at the 640. And then gifts slash donations. Is this so personally I separate these. I do like donation and then I have gifts for like family members or whoever it would be. Is this so thinking of August specifically, is 60 accurate or lower, higher?
Mostly birthdays, honestly, that we
Okay.
budget around. That's probably accurate.
Okay. So 60.
Yeah. And that is one place where like we could look. Oh, okay. No, I take that back. So my mom is getting married at the end of next month.
Okay.
And I feel like some of that would probably go to like, just stuff for her. I was about to say we could probably lower that, but we actually probably shouldn't for August specifically.
Okay. Should we bump it up for August?
Yeah.
How much do you think?
Well, okay, let's just say ideally 100, but I feel
Okay.
like we might have to come back and I mean, we're gonna have to shave some things. So,
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna put in here, mom. Is it a wedding? Is that okay to put wedding?
yep. Yep.
Okay. So I'm just gonna put 100 here, but yeah, you have to come back and change that. Okay. Now these union dues, is this a monthly thing or is it just like every couple of months?
That I don't know why I put that. So I that's about what we spend each year. So I should
Okay.
have broken that out more. That is related to my husband's apprenticeship that he does
Hmm.
for his job. And he has to pay, he's part of a union, so he has to pay union dues, and then he also has a fee for the classes that he does as part of the apprenticeship.
Okay.
And so that covers the dues and like the books and stuff that he has to buy.
Okay. When does he have to pay those? Is it like once a year or
Usually twice a year.
okay.
Uh, well, actually, I mean, so the dues we could pay monthly. We usually pay twice a year because it's just easier,
Okay.
and they're not that much. And then the classes he pays for his books twice a year, like at the start of each semester. So his payment will be due in August.
Okay. How much will that be?
It's like it's around 750. I don't remember the
Okay.
exact number.
Okay. So I'll put 750. And maybe this is another one that could be a potential sinking fund
True.
because that would be helpful instead of cash flowing. So we'll keep that as is for now. And then this is the family loan. So keep that at 200. Auto maintenance, I'm assuming, is this just in case some,
General, yeah, need
okay.
an oil change or new battery or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
For August, is there any car maintenance you're expecting?
I will need an oil change, I think. So, and that's usually like $70.
Okay, so let's bump this to, I'm gonna go up to 75 in case.
Okay.
And I think car maintenance, 50 per month or so. We'll probably skip that in August though, and just pay that as you need to. Travel, is this another one where you're saving for or
Yeah, so I like to always try to put money towards that just because we do like to take trips.
mhm.
Um, Currently, we have kind of two things coming up. One is already paid for. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're like the little getaway cabins, like a
Yeah,
house out in the woods.
those are so cute. Yeah.
I know my husband and I like to do those. Um, and so we have one scheduled in August, but that's already been paid for.
Okay.
Um, we won't really have any other expenses with that except for food that we
Okay.
would normally eat anyway.
Hmm.
And then in September, we are going to Florida with some friends for Disney. So that'll be
Okay.
a big one. The flights and the lodging have already been paid for It'll just
Okay.
be like the food, the parks, anything like that that we decide to do.
And will you be paying that in September or paying more in August?
Probably mostly in September.
Okay. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to just bump this down to 0 and keep it on there. House, is this just like in case anything comes up for the house?
Yeah, that's just little projects or repairs or yeah, just anything to better the house or fix
Okay.
the house.
For August, is there anything planned with that?
No, there's nothing we need to do. There's a whole bunch of
Okay.
stuff we'd like to do, but nothing
Yeah.
pressing.
Okay. So I'm going to bump that down to 0. Christmas, this is like savings.
Yeah, so nothing
Okay.
we'd be actually spending in August.
Okay. I'm going to take that one out. I did make I think I put gifts, holidays on there as a potential sinking fund. I know that this is like a really long list, but it's just ideas for now, and you can
Sure,
either start them now or, just a few of them and then eventually add more to them, and then you can add to them on a monthly basis.
sure.
Okay, so kids you put at 50. Is this would probably stay on there, right? Like
Yeah,
any
I
ex
I don't even really know what that's for.
Okay.
I had originally put that on there. It made more sense when they were just like little babies. Because it was like, oh, we need to buy this car seat, right? So
Hmm.
we would pull from that. But now, I mean, we have two boys. The second one uses a lot of the stuff that the other one grew out of. Uh,
Hmm.
we get stuff for their birthdays. I get a lot of free stuff from our local Buy Nothing group, and
Awesome.
then I give stuff back through there anyway. So
Hmm.
I don't know. That's kind of just become a weird little like, oh, we need new pajamas for him, or I think he'd like this toy. I don't really know. It's kind of a mess. We could
Okay.
probably get rid of that because I mean their diapers and everything go through grocery. Like we
Hmm.
buy them what they need and it usually just ends up getting lumped into something else. So
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I'll leave it on there and bump it down to 0. But if you do spend in that, then you can add to it. Okay. Birthday parties, I'm assuming that can be gone for August unless there's a birthday.
yeah, no, that could be gone.
Okay. So that's one where you could add to the sinking fund, like gifts, holidays, and save up for things like that.
Hmm.
Daycare, 915. Is that
Hmm.
every month? Okay. I'm gonna actually move that up here because it's a bigger expense. Doesn't really matter, but just so that's like a big expense. And I'm assuming that will continue for the next few years or so, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so with you put clothes, hair, personal all together. I would count hair separately than personal. That's what I do anyway. I put like health and beauty together, or some people have like health wellness as one, and then beauty as a separate to like do their nails, their hair, and then personal, I would count as like the clothes, the shoes,
We don't
anything like
really
that.
we don't really have that much for hair. I don't really get my hair done.
Hmm.
I mean, I get it cut like once or twice a year.
Okay.
It's mostly my husband, and then my 2-year-old has started getting his hair cut.
Okay.
But they're like $23 each time they go, every 1 to 2 months.
Okay.
So would you still separate that out?
It's up to you. It's okay if you want to keep it like this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I did like cut and color and got my nails done and all that, then it would make
Hmm.
more sense to separate it.
Hmm.
That's just not really a high priority for us. So
Okay. Yeah, so let's keep it as is and move it up. And for August, will they be getting their haircut?
probably one of them. So I'd
Okay.
put like $25.
25. How about your husband? Will he be getting his? Or do you want to put that under a separate like Tucker personal?
No, he probably won't until September.
Okay. And then since this has personal in it, how about actual personal spending? Clothes, shoes, whatever you may buy for yourself or for your husband.
So the clothes has been kind of a bigger expense lately just
Hmm.
because I have been in maternity clothes for the last 2 years and I'm kind of coming out of that. And
Hmm.
so and a lot of what I owned before I was pregnant doesn't fit anymore. And so I've had to buy a lot of new things. And I've been trying to create like a higher quality capsule wardrobe because I
Hmm.
hate shopping. And so I kind of just want to like buy it once and not have to think about it again for a long
Yeah.
time. But I'm kind of in a good place now. I could probably hold off in August on buying anything. My husband usually goes through like work pants and stuff pretty regularly. So we should probably budget for him to get at least a new pair of work pants next month, which
Okay.
are about
How
80 bucks.
80, you said?
Hmm.
So I'm gonna do the 25 for the haircut plus 80, so 105-ish. And honestly, I would, if he's buying work pants, he can probably write that off as a business expense and say like supplies or
That's a
I
really good point.
yeah, I
Yeah.
do I don't really write off clothes, but if I'm buying like things that could be counted as personal, I count that toward business because it's his business.
Yeah, I
So
mean, he only wears them when he's working.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. And
so.
it's probably like safer pants. So yeah, that's
Yep,
absolutely business
yep.
write-offs. So make sure he keeps track of that.
Okay.
Okay, so the only, well, are we missing anything else as far as spending goes and thinking of August specifically?
I don't think so.
Okay. So if I even just take out this savings, now I know we're working with a conservative income, but if we subtract all of your expenses from your income, you're in the negative. So has this been something that happens on a regular basis? Like, are you feeling this negative number in your
Yeah, I
finances?
feel like that's why our budget is really more critical than it's ever been because I feel
Hmm.
like we've just been a little over, a little over, a little over
Hmm.
for a long time.
Now, when I look at this, I'm not seeing, so I took out that savings. So this isn't any savings, which isn't ideal.
Right.
I'm not seeing anywhere that is like you can cut back. Like you have to pay for the classes aside from the tithing, but like you, if you want to pay for that, then we're going to include it.
Hmm.
But to me, there's nothing on here. I know that you would need to be tracking and see if this is actually accurate. Like try to stay in budget with the 900 for groceries and the 250 for food out. But I mean, you could lower the food out, but that's still going to be in the negative. So I think for y'all's situation, it's really increasing your income.
Okay. And I think we can do that,
Hmm.
especially with his side jobs. It's pretty easy I mean, it's really just time versus money, right? So
Right.
maybe next month he just works a little more than he would otherwise want to, or
Yeah.
normal.
Hmm. Okay. And that would change the tax savings. Obviously, you don't have to save for this. It's not super urgent. It would just be ideal. So you don't have a huge tax bill
Right,
next year.
right.
So I'm going to lower that real quick and see what it looks like. So negative 269 or 296. And if we, so I think top priority, as we've been saying, is that emergency fund. And I would say, let's say he makes an extra, how much do you think he could make in August?
I mean, if he like went hard, he could make 3,500.
Okay, so let's put in 35 and see what would be possible. And I'm actually gonna, because with that, he would have much more to work with. So let's
Hmm.
see if you still put money 20% aside. So 700 to taxes. Okay, that looks much better. And I would say you should keep the car insurance sinking fund on there and put 200 to that to save for that. And let me see the other ones. Maybe car maintenance, but not super urgent. Definitely not the house down payment right now. Maybe gifts and holidays, just because for most people, that's something like you're absolutely going to be spending on.
Hmm.
But otherwise, I would say, if you could do at least 500 to the emergency fund in August,
Sure.
and then you have a little bit left over. This is if he has the 3,500 coming in.
Hmm.
So you'd have a little bit left over. You could put that to maybe like the car maintenance sinking fund or to travel or to gifts. So let me add those on there as like what I would think are kind of the top priority. Yeah, so I'm gonna just list those on there and you could add to those, but I'm not gonna put anything for now. So yes, if best case scenario, this is what it would look like. But if it was back down to the, I'm going to keep this at the 16 as expected. That will go to 320, and then hopefully the actual is much higher
Sure.
because that would be pretty good, a good situation, and you could jump up the emergency fund. And I would focus on that for the next few months, like build that up to the for you with a house and with children. Because for most people, I say I don't really like Dave Ramsey's 1,000 minimum, start with 1,000. I think it should be at least 1,000, but you continue adding to that on a monthly basis. But with the house and children, I would say at least 2,000. Then you could slow down and just slowly add to the emergency fund. So maybe get to 2,000 as soon as possible and focus on the other goals if you wanted to. But otherwise, I would still say prioritize that emergency fund. And luckily your debt isn't anything crazy. I personally,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be in a rush to pay down the mortgage, especially if you're planning to move.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't worry about that too much. And then with the family loan, if it's how much? 29? 79. So you want to pay that down in a couple of years.
Yeah, and again, I mean that's what I think that's just more of like a pride thing. Like I would prefer to just not owe them that money. But
Yeah.
that is a place where I mean if we don't pay them 1 month, they're
Hmm.
fine. Like they don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to pay that off in 15 months, you'd have to be doing like 500 a month to that. Or if you wanted to do like 24 months, about $330 per month
okay.
to pay that off. But yeah, I would agree. I think if they're willing to help you, they're okay with it. It's not causing any family stress, then take your time with it. What do you think of these numbers?
I think that's good. I'm feeling a little better about where we're at. I mean, it's not beautiful, like it's not right, like the perfect
Yeah.
practical situation, but I feel like it gives me a concrete steps to take to get back to where we want to be. Uh,
Hmm.
and so that feels good.
So I'm gonna move this down and first put open. This is just a summary of your to-dos. Open high yield savings account. If you're open to that, as I said, I'll send you some. I use Marcus by Goldman Sachs, but I really like Ally Bank as well. There's like Synchrony too. They're good too. All of them should be over 4% right now. So any money that you put in is just going to gain money passively. You do have to pay taxes on that, but it's never anything like crazy. It's just on top of your income tax. They'll send you a statement. So yes, discuss food and drink from the grocery store. See what Tucker likes to buy at QT, and then start buying it at the grocery store, and discuss with him like lowering food out slash QT, and maybe if he can pay a little bit more close attention to the QT trips and tracking that
Okay.
as he goes, and I like setting a budget for QT. Okay. The focus is on increasing income. So ideally 3,500 for August. And then the other focus is emergency fund. And then after that, I would say catch up on taxes. So like once you reach 2,000 in your emergency fund, I would slow down on that and focus on the tax savings. Because the other thing too is if as long as you're saving money somewhere, like that can also act as an emergency fund if absolutely necessary.
Right.
But you just have to have the savings there in general. So,
Right. Okay.
okay. I think that's it. I mean, overall, y'all are doing pretty good considering the debt situation. You can definitely, if you can increase the income and increase the savings, that will put you in a better place. And slowly you'll get there. Plus, like the daycare, that's temporary. I'm sure you being part-time might be temporary. So if you start working full-time, then you'll increase your income. I'm sure Tucker will increase his income from his full-time job. So yeah, every month is just you just play it month by month. So do you have any other questions or things that I could help with your finances?
No, I think that's everything. I feel like you've given me a lot to start with, and um, I think we really just need to come back to an intention focused financial, I don't know what I'm trying to say, process. Um,
Hmm.
I used to be very like on top of things and just having two under two, and
Yeah, it's hard.
both of us working a lot, like it just I feel like we've been in survival mode, but now, I mean, my youngest just turned 1. We're kind of coming out of survival mode and I'm ready to kind of get things back in order. So I feel like I have some good first steps and hopefully we'll be feeling better about everything in a couple months.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just always with the budgeting, go with the conservative number, and then ideally it would be more income each month.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
okay.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing everything.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was very helpful.